My name's Greg Knapp. This is the Greg Knapp Experience, your 20-minute thrill ride for your commute or your workout. Virginia elects a Republican governor, and remember, Biden won that state by 10 points just 1 year ago. Oh man, but there were some dirty tricks in Virginia, Democrats stealing campaign signs, and people were told no mask, no vote. Well, that's not true. Mainstream media continuing to lie that CRT is not taught in Virginia schools. Well, we've got the proof for you. Senate Republicans looking to nullify the Biden vaccine mandate on private workers, and hypocrisy at the Glasgow Climate Summit. But I mean, that doesn't really surprise you, does it? It's all coming up on the Greg Knapp Experience. Let's go. So let's start with the big race in Virginia. Yes, Republican Glenn Youngkin came out and he won. He beat the Democrat Telly McAuliffes, the Clintonite, the guy that has been bringing in all the big guns. I mean, he had Joe Biden campaigning for him, Kamala Harris, President Obama, and he still lost. And this was a state that just 1 year ago, the Democrats with Biden won by 10 points. It just shows you how bad McAuliffe was. McAuliffe tried to make this about Trump. He tried to nationalize it. Youngkin made it about you as a parent, about what was going on in your town and your school, and he won. It's a state where Republicans had not won in a dozen years in any statewide election. He's a first-time candidate, Youngkin is, and former private equity CEO. And of course, the Democrats, he just made it all about race. No, he didn't. You guys made it all about race, and he pointed it out and said how wrong it was to be dividing our children over race and to be teaching them these things, that certain skin colors are oppressors and certain skin colors are victims, and that it's a systemically racist society with white supremacy and all this nonsense that people are tired of because it's ripping us apart. So you guys are the ones that are making everything about race, and people like Youngkin are trying to stop it and treat everybody equally. That's called not being racist. So Kamala Harris's prediction is coming back to bite her. When she was campaigning for Democrat Terry McAuliffe, she tweeted out and said, "What happens in Virginia will in large part determine what happens in 2022, 2024, and on." I think she's right, and I don't think she's going to be very happy with the outcome. New Jersey, by the way, New Jersey, blue state New Jersey. The race for governor in New Jersey, too close to call still this morning. Republican challenger Jack Ciattarelli, clinging to a slight lead. The Democrat presented himself as a solid progressive, and that doesn't seem to be working out too well right about now. But there were some dirty tricks going on. There were reports coming in from various places that if you went to vote in Virginia and you weren't wearing a mask, there were some poll workers who were turning you away. Now, the problem is that's illegal. So the Washington Examiner reports that the commissioner of the Virginia Department of Elections had to come out and admonish the poll workers with an email. Chris Piper's his name. He said, "You may not turn voters away because they are not wearing masks. It is not sufficient to offer curbside voting as an alternative." In other words, they've got to let you in and vote in the polling booth. He said his department had received several reports of voters being turned away or being made to wait until the polling place was clear before being allowed to vote if they refused to wear a mask. Well, they shouldn't refuse to wear a mask. That's not your call. That is not your call. Here's one. Paula Boyard reporting what was reported to PJ Media, said Fairfax County resident reached out to report that he and his wife were turned away at the door because they were not wearing masks. The person said to them, "You can't enter the building without a mask." There was a woman at the door. The woman said the couple and their children, one of whom is a 2-year-old with medical issues that precludes them from wearing a mask, would be required to mask up or they would not be allowed to enter the building. And signs on the door at Precinct 507 showed that you were supposed to be masked up and all the stuff about COVID. But according to a directive from the Department of Elections, can we require a voter to wear a mask? No. We are encouraging voters to bring masks if they must show up in person to vote. However, if someone is not wearing a mask covering, you may not turn him or her away. You may offer the voting curbside or offer them a face covering. Actually, it turns out you cannot offer them the curbside, so this was wrong. You cannot turn a voter away because they refuse to wear a mask. In fact, even a voter showing symptoms of COVID-19 cannot be barred from entering the polling place. What if a voter is displaying symptoms of illness? You can offer them curbside voting to ensure they stay outside. If a voter is symptomatic and insists on voting in the polling place, you cannot turn them away. That was a directive from the Department of Elections. Some people didn't seem to like it. Well, the voters that reached out to PJ Media are fully vaxxed, by the way, but they wish to remain anonymous. They said they were not offered curbside voting. They insisted. Then the election officials allowed them to use the curbside voting option. So this was going, who knows how many people who weren't wearing masks and turned away just, oh, okay, I guess I can't vote. But Republicans still won. Man, the other guy, by the way, that was doing a dirty trick, Democrat Virginia delegate Chris Hurst, pulled over by police in Radford, Virginia. A woman was pulling up signs of his opponent and getting into the car. Just stealing some signs. I mean, that's really that's old school voter manipulation right there. That's just an old school dirty trick. Happens all the time. Don't worry about it. By the way, you're not required to show ID to vote in Virginia. Yes, under the current governor, Virginia, Ralph Northam governor, he signed a bill into law removing the requirement that voters show ID in order to cast their ballots. All you have to do is sign a statement attesting to your identity. Yeah, the honor system is what they're using. And as PJ Media puts it, if you're willing to sign a statement saying you're Joe Voter, who you know is not planning to vote today, you can vote his ballot. No questions asked. So when people say, oh, there's no voter fraud, how do you know? Because this kind of fraud could happen and no one is going to report it. If you're voting for somebody who doesn't show up, if you're voting for somebody who's dead but still on the rolls, no one is going to notice. We have no idea how much fraud really goes on. In just a second, I want to tell you about the MSNBC anchors melting down as Youngkin was starting to win in Virginia. But if you're enjoying the show, please be a part of the movement and help us combat the far left's version of America and rally around what makes us exceptional. Please like the Greg Knapp Experience page on Facebook, and then listen to the podcast wherever podcasts are heard. Give us a review, give us a thumbs up, tell 3 friends to tell 3 friends so we can keep increasing the number of people who are getting this information. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. So over at MSNBC, Tristan Justice reporting, as Youngkin was starting to win, they were freaking out, man. They were melting down. Nicole Wallace said Republican businessman Glenn Youngkin laundered Trump's really sort of disgusting, flagrant out racism. Huh? His campaign promise, Wallace said, is on day 1, I'm going to ban critical race theory. That's like us banning ghosts. There are no ghosts. Yeah, here comes the gaslighting of there is no CRT. And so now the media has been assisting the Democrats. This is all over the place. If you go to newsbusters.org, you'll see all the listing of the media just lying about CRT and lying about the Republicans and calling them all kinds of racist names. I mean, it's the same old, same old. At some point, screaming you're a racist that everybody you don't agree with is not an argument. And I think the average American has got that now. MSNBC, screaming you're a racist at somebody that says everyone should be treated equally doesn't make a lot of sense. Screaming racist at somebody that says, you know what, I don't think we should teach kids to separate each other on the color of their skin doesn't make a lot of sense. MSNBC's Joy Reid labeled Republicans dangerous. These Republicans are dangerous. This isn't a party that's just another political party that disagrees with us on tax policy. At this point, they're dangerous. She charged Republicans with stoking a form of white nationalism that leads to domestic terrorism. Yeah, she needs to get on board with our attorney general and just investigate those parents that had the audacity to go talk at the school board events, right? But here's a few more people that said similar things. PBS NewsHour, critical race theory that is not taught in public schools in Virginia. NBC News, there's no evidence it's been taught in public schools. MSNBC's Morning Joe guest, critical race theory is not taught in Virginia schools. Well, as I've been saying, that's because they're trying to say that critical race theory is only what's being taught at Harvard Law School. And so if you're not teaching that, you're not teaching critical race theory. And of course, what we keep saying, which is common sense, is that they are taking critical race theory and then they are using it to write curriculum that goes in the school. It's not called critical race theory when it goes in the school, but it's everything that's in critical race theory. that America is systemically racist, that it's a bunch of white supremacy belief systems, that there's nothing white people can do really to get rid of their inherent unconscious bias, that white people are the oppressors, that black people are the victims. They don't call it critical race theory, but that's what it is. So we move on to what's actually been pushed in the Virginia schools, though. And Courtney O'Brien points out a few things. The Virginia Department of Education recommended a book called We Want to Do More Than Survive, Abolitionist Teaching in the Pursuit of Educational Freedom. That was in March 2020. It told teachers they, quote, must embrace theories such as critical race theory. Well, they're embracing the theory, but they're not teaching it. Right. Again, from the book. This is from Bettina Love. Lastly, teachers must embrace theories such as critical race theory, settler colonialism, black feminism, dis-ability, critical race studies, and other critical theories that have the ability to interrogate anti-blackness. But we're not teaching it. The phrase critical race theory actually appears on the State Department of Education website in Virginia. Not for long, Buster. We're going to scrub that before you can keep talking about it. Yeah, I know. And that's why Chris Rufo is important. Chris Rufo has been doing some great work at finding evidence of critical race theory and its components being taught in our schools as the liberal media and the Democrats and the lefties, but I repeat myself, are gaslighting you into believing that it's not real. So Christopher Rufo put out a tweet thread yesterday. Terry McAuliffe's closing argument is critical race theory is a racist dog whistle that has never been taught in Virginia. But I can debunk this lie and prove that McAuliffe himself was the first Virginia governor to promote CRT. And by the way, Chris Rufo in this Twitter thread, thank you, he has images of documents and slideshows to back up each point he makes. Okay? Check it out. In 2015, then Governor McAuliffe's Department of Education instructed Virginia public schools to, quote, embrace critical race theory in order to, quote, re-engineer attitudes and belief systems. They explicitly endorse CRT. He can't wiggle out of this with word games, he said. And so then he shows a slideshow, a little slide from it, that says culturally responsive teaching and learning. 1, embrace critical race theory. That's the first thing. Embrace critical race theory. Then under that it says engage in race-conscious teaching and learning. So under the Northam administration, Superintendent of Public Instruction James Lane sent a memo to Virginia public schools endorsing, quote, foundations of critical race theory in education, end quote, calling it, quote, an important analytic tool that can further spur developments in education, end quote. Right now on its website, the Virginia Department of Education recommends critical race theory in education as a best practice and derives its definitions of racism, white supremacy, and education equity explicitly from critical race theory. But we're not teaching it. At the district level, Loudoun County Schools hired a consulting firm to implement, quote, critical race theory, end quote, and developed a high school class explicitly teaching, quote, critical race theory, end quote. Would you quit with the quotes? I'm just saying it's directly from this stuff. Even the district superintendent admitted the curricula, quote, align with the ideology of CRT, end quote. Is that the last quote? Yes, I'm done. But that's going on right now. No, it's not going on. They're lying to you. Look, I don't like talking about race. And really, it's just skin color. We're all a human race. Oh, you're one of those guys? Yes, I am. We are all just humans with different pigment in our skin, for goodness sakes. It's racist to say that the most important thing about you is your skin color. And that's what the left is doing, and then trying to make you the bad guy when you say, wait a second, I thought we were all supposed to be treated equally. That's all we want. So when they lie about it, you have to counter the lie. Otherwise, the lie wins. It's getting so bad. Even the New York Times has published a piece on the left's wokeism and woke speak and new words they just make up. Here's a little bit from it. In Chicago, Kelsey O'Donnell, 31, wonders why colleagues and friends have suddenly started saying BIPOC. Have you wondered about that? You know, black, indigenous, or other people of color? Where did it come from? There was really nobody to ask, says Miss O'Donnell, who is white. It was just, this is what we say now. The new language extends beyond race, adding phrases and introducing ideas that are new to many Americans. Gender-neutral terms like Latinx for people of Latin American descent, they-them pronouns that refer to a single person, birthing parent or pregnant people instead of mother, to be inclusive of trans people, are also gaining traction. Yeah, most Americans still have no idea this is going on. I know you do because you're paying attention. But if you talk to your friends, how many of them even know that all these words are just being made up? I mean, really, because it's a brand new word, BIPOC. Made up by activists on Twitter in 2013, wasn't part of anyone's speech prior to last year. And by the way, as the New York Times points out, this is really top-down language. The Black, indigenous people of color don't say BIPOC. It's the white, educated, elite liberal who's trying to appear very racially conscious, who makes these things up and then says them. For white liberals especially, there is a pressure to pressure to engage with these words in the social moment, says Dr. Hudley, one of the people in the New York Times piece. They see this as a part of what it means to be an educated white person in certain places and spaces, whether they agree with it or not. And if you look through the comments after this article, most of the people are fed up with it, and most of the people seem to be liberals and Democrats. It's starting to create a backlash, and I don't even think they realize how bad it's getting. Yeah, words matter, and you just can't start making up new words and then forcing everyone to say them. And if they don't say them, then somehow they're the awful, evil people. And that's what they've been doing, and I think people are getting tired of it. I know some Latin people that think Latinx is the dumbest thing ever because they're like, wait a second, I'm Latina or I'm Latino, because guess what? In the Spanish language, words have masculine and feminine pronouns. You don't get to just slap an X at the end of it because you don't like masculine or feminine. You're destroying my language. Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're destroying all of our languages. Brooke Singman reports more than 36 Senate Republicans are moving to do something about Joe Biden's mandate for the vaccine for companies that have over 100 employees. He's trying to do this by executive order and trying to get OSHA to put out a rule that they're supposed to be coming out with very soon. And so finally, the Republicans are doing something about it. Senator Mike Braun of Indiana, he's the bigwig, the top Republican on the Senate Subcommittee on Employment and Workplace Safety. So he came out and he's leading 41 other Republicans to strike down Biden's rule. How do you do that? How do you strike down a rule from an executive order? It's called the Congressional Review Act, and that's the official process you can use to eliminate an executive branch rule, and so they're working to do that. Well, why aren't all 50 senators on board? Well, the other remaining Republicans say they are waiting to strike down the rule and join on with this until OSHA formally announces the rule. But they said there is no Republican opposition to the disapproval. Okay, that sounds great. I love it, but how does it work? Okay, so once OSHA publishes the formal mandate into the Federal Registry, then the rule is transmitted to the House of Representatives and the Senate. At that point, the clock starts. You got 20 days. During those 20 days, the disapproval is reviewed in the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. It's called HELP. At the end of the 20 days, the formal disapproval will be eligible for a vote on the Senate floor. Braun will schedule that. Then the Senate floor vote on the disapproval is expected to take place in December, would put all the senators' stances on the issue on the record. And if the disapproval passes by a simple majority, then it goes to the president's desk. Okay, now here's the thing. Is there any chance that the Senate Republicans can really shoot this down when they don't have a majority in the Senate? Possible, doubtful. The only chance is if enough of Americans, enough of the people like you, if you email and call your representative and your senator. And I know people think that doesn't matter, but I'll tell you when it does, because when I've talked to senators, they say, Greg, here's what we do. We get all these calls and all these emails, and my aide will say, Senator, it's 2-1 against this. Now that matters to me because I'm supposed to represent my people. See, so it does matter. They're not going to read everything, but they're going to look at how many say yay and how many say nay. And then if the polling results start to change, then you got this question, as Braun put it. It will make them decide, am I going to follow a crazy mandate or am I going to save my political career? It's interesting how often once it comes down to their career, they start to change their opinions. Yeah. Seattle fire staffing is not going well. More about the vaccine mandate. We've been talking about this day in and day out. The Seattle Fire Department had more than 10 units comprising fire engines, medic units, other emergency response teams unavailable last weekend as a result of decreased staffing levels due to the firings over vaccine mandates. There will be at least one person who will die from this, a source within Seattle Fire told the Post-Millennial. Seattle Fire has struggled to keep optimum staffing levels since before the mandate firings, and now the city is set to suffer even greater consequences. Yeah, that's why I said vaccine mandates are dangerous, and that got me a warning from Facebook. They didn't even bother to see why I said they were dangerous. They're dangerous because if they have people getting fired who are experienced in saving lives, firefighters, EMT workers, ambulance drivers, police officers, doctors, nurses, pilots, all these people that are very important to keeping you safe, then yeah, that's dangerous. You got to deplatform this guy. I know, it's horrible to actually say the truth. Reuters reporting that it's gone beyond first responders. In Wichita, Kansas, nearly half of the 10,000 employees at aircraft companies Textron Inc. and Spirit Aerosystems remain unvaccinated, risking their jobs in defiance of the federal mandate. According to the head of the local machinist union, we're going to lose a lot of employees over this. Many workers did not object to the vaccines as such, he said, but were staunchly opposed to what they see as government meddling in personal health decisions. Yup. So the union president goes on. He's a lifelong Democrat. He said that he would no longer vote for the party. Quote, they'll never get another vote from me, and I'm telling the workers here the same thing, end quote. So this could lead to who knows how many U.S. workers losing their jobs and really hurt the sluggish economy. And whose fault is it? Well, it's their fault. Just take the vaccine. Or maybe, try not to force people to do things they don't want to do and realize that we've already got, somewhere between 60 and 80% of Americans vaccinated, and maybe we should just say, hey, that's pretty doggone good, and let people make their own decisions. Real Clear Policy has this one out. A lot of money went out for COVID. Uinta County in Utah, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, received $5.1 million in the CARES Act funding for COVID-19 relief, and some whistleblowers are now saying maybe that money wasn't all spent exactly right. At least $322,000 was spent on the Buckskin Hills Ski and Snow Tubing Hill. What? Yep. That spending caused some anonymous whistleblowers. And then there was an audit spurred because of that, and they found that the money wasn't really being spent very well. When the commissioners bought 6 snow guns for the tubing hill at a price of $19,999 each, that's a weird cost. Why that much? Well, I'm glad you asked. See, if it's $20,000 or more, you have to take bids on the deal. But if it's under $20,000, you don't have to take bids. So they bought them for $19,999. Oh, there's no shenanigans going on here. I love this from the commissioner, Bart Heslem. We didn't build a tubing hill with the CARES money. We expanded the tubing hill. This guy's good. This guy's got a future in politics. He said the expansion was needed for spacing, getting people outside. Of the $5.1 million that Uinta County, Utah got, almost $3.5 million did go to business recovery grants, but officials didn't verify whether the applicants had been impacted by the pandemic, and $117,000 of that went to companies owned by certain county officials and their immediate family members. It's nice work if you can get it. CNN analyst compares "Let's Go Brandon" to rhetoric from ISIS, Nazis, and the KKK. This is a new story every day now. The left is losing its ever-loving mind over the fact that you are chanting, "Let's go Brandon." And of course, that's your PG version of saying not so nice things to Joe Biden, which I think is hilarious because it's a nice way of showing that you're upset at the president. This is the United States of America. We have the right to make fun of our president. In fact, it's a national pastime, and it doesn't matter who's in office. It was a lot more vulgar against Trump, and the media was cheering it on. Now, all of a sudden, I can't believe these people. It's so vulgar. Liberal CNN political analyst Joe Lockhart. He came out and said, you know who also had coded statements like Brandon? ISIS, the Klan, Nazis, beginning to get the point? Yeah, I got the point, Joe. You're an insane partisan hack. It's a pretty good point. Liberal journalists and pundits have become outraged at the rallying cry. They say it's vulgar, trollish, not patriotic. And a Southwest pilot who might have uttered the phrase was compared to an ISIS sympathizer. These people are certifiably insane. They cannot stand the fact that this has gone viral, that this is something that is reminding you you are in the majority. You're not some fringe dude on the edges because you don't like what this president is doing. You are in the majority. And when you know that and you feel confident in that and you can talk to your friends about it, and this phrase, let's go Brandon, is making fun of the president, but it's also making fun of the media because they lied about the F Joe Biden chant that was behind the NASCAR winner. And she said, you can hear them chanting, let's go Brandon. So we're making fun of Joe and the media at the same time. It's beautiful. It's a twofer, and I love it. And the lefties cannot stand it. Finally, the Glasgow Climate Conference. You know, that's what's going on. It's the most important thing ever. It's the last best hope to tackle the climate crisis. It's the last best hope to save the globe, the world, the planet, the earth. That's all the same thing. I know I'm on a roll. According to the Mail Online, 400 private jets flew in for the people trying to save the planet. Now, there's plenty of commercial flights coming in and out of Glasgow, Scotland. But no. People like Jeff Bezos needed their private jet. 400 plus private jets. Back to the Daily Mail Online. Conservative predictions suggest the fleet of private jets arriving will blast out 13,000 tons of carbon dioxide in total, equivalent to the amount consumed by more than 1,600 Britons in a year. Fly commercial? No. If you really want to save the greenhouse gas emissions, just do the entire conference via Zoom. I mean, you can do breakout. Have you used Zoom? You can do breakout rooms. You can set it up for as long or as short of a time as you want. You can put these cool little backgrounds behind you and pretend that you're there in Glasgow, Scotland. It would be awesome. And it wouldn't cost any CO2 from a big plane. But see, the people there don't really believe that this is the last chance to save the planet, or they would change their own behavior. Instead, they just try to change yours. My name's Greg Knapp. This is the Greg Knapp Experience.